A fun family weekend here at Ball State. It all started off with a proposal before kickoff. Jacob Sleek and Shelby Fortlander getting engaged on the field right near midfield at Scheumann Stadium. That started off family weekend, and then Ball State successfully followed that up with the victory here today against Tennessee Tech to move to 2-1 on the season, a final of 28-13. We're back on SportsLink Game Day. It's the post-game show. Mick Tidrow, Alex Thomas. We're joined by offensive line coach Kyle DeVan. Coach, thanks for joining us here on the show.
Oh, man, big pleasure. You know, I'm excited to be here. Excited to come here after a win, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. So offensive line today, they were able to spring that running game here today for about 230 yards. What did they do so well to get that running game going today?
You know, you talk about guys that were resilient in what they did. You know, we've had pressure from the field up the middle, then they would just rush forward. So, you know, we every time we came out the sideline, we made our adjustments, and they were able to take those adjustments to the field. And we played a lot of young guys. You know, obviously Vinny had an injury, a setback in the course of the game, and Curtis Blackwell was out there full time, who's a true freshman. Zach Ricketts, who's a redshirt sophomore, who did a great job, and then the tackle in the center position, I thought they did a good job leading, you know, making the adjustments. And we talk about all the time in our room, it's the great offensive lines, you know, they could do it every day, but what separates the great ones from the good ones is when they get out there in game day and something else happens, something different happens, and they're able to make those adjustments. So I'm really proud of the guys. You know, obviously we're not where we need to be, but we're on the way.
And last week you had a really rush-heavy offense with UAB. Yep. This one a little bit more pass-heavy. How does that change in your week and your preparations with the offensive line?
You know, I think being a multiple style of offense, which we are, you know, we go into the game plan thinking we want to run the ball, we want to pass the ball. It's always overemphasized. I'm always yelling, we want to run the ball. Joey's always yelling at Coach New, we're going to pass the ball. And so we do a good job getting those guys ready. And you know, really, Joey, when he's calling the plays, he's going with the feel of the game. When we're able to run the ball, he's going to stick to the run. When we're throwing the ball, he's going to stick to the pass. And that's what really makes our offense exciting.
Offensive line exploded here today. No sacks allowed on Riley Neal here today. How important was that?
It was really important. You know, when you look at a defense and they're bringing 5, 6, 7 guys, and you're able to protect for a quarterback who, you know, our guys are getting open. You give Riley Neal time, he's going to find the open guy. So I'm proud of him now. Was it clean? No, but that's football. So, you know, obviously when I saw that stat on there, I was pretty fired up. You know, 230 some odd yards rushing, 0 sacks. I feel pretty good right now. There's a lot to clean up, but you get to celebrate them when you win.
And you got a pretty diverse backfield running back-wise.
Yep.
How does that change what you do on the offensive line depending on what style of running you're doing with each back?
Yeah, you know, the exciting thing is you get James Gilbert, who kind of does it all. You get Malik Dunner, who we consider a speedster guy. You know, he ran 10-7 in the 100 in high school. So he's a speedster. And then you get Caleb Huntley, who's the big bruiser. So all three of them have very unique skill sets, and they're great assets to our team. So when the guys are in there, they know what they're getting. When Huntley's in there, they know that they're going to pound some people. And Malik Dunner, you get the guys covered up, and he can hit a big one like he did tonight. And James Gilbert, you know, he can do it all. And that's the exciting thing about our offensive line. They know if we cover the guys up, we get some movement, we're going to have a good rushing game.
You mentioned a lot of the youngsters coming in and playing on that offensive line. What have the veterans done to help out that offensive line?
You know, the Vinny, obviously, he had a setback, but he's such a good leader. You know, and I forgot to mention Caleb Slavin's a redshirt freshman who's, you know, this is his 3rd game starting college football. You know, he's been in that position, so I kind of feel like he's a little bit above a young guy because he's done so well. But the older guys, obviously Alex Joss leading and Vinny leading those young guys and really teaching them how to be Division I offensive linemen, because it's not easy playing this game, and especially with what we do. You know, we don't just zone right and zone left and up tempo all the time. We're a schematic team who, you know, we got to be able to adjust to when they're doing something different. So, you know, I'm really proud of the older guys teaching the younger guys how to be offensive linemen. You know,
I know this one just got wrapped up. Western Kentucky next week.
Yeah.
Right away, what's the big concern?
I'm going to celebrate this one tonight, and then, you know, about 4:30 tomorrow afternoon, I put this one to bed, and we get on to Western Kentucky, who obviously you look at the past couple of years, they've been a dominant force, and really in Division I football. I know they're not a Power 5 school, but I tell you what, they've beat a lot of them over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Offensive line coach Kyle DeVan joining us here on SportsLink Game Day on the post-game show. Coach, thanks and congratulations on the victory
man,
today.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
So Ball State wraps this one up. A victory today, 28-13 against Tennessee Tech to move to 2-1. It's family weekend. It was a successful family weekend for this Ball State Cardinals offense and the defense. We mentioned the 230 rushing yards here today by Ball State's running attack. Malik Dunner, a couple of big carries. Caleb Huntley as well after James Gilbert left the game in the 3rd quarter. How did that change today's game?
It completely changed everything as you take a look at the highlights here. Riley Neal getting it started, tosses outside to Given back in the back, and we talked about it at halftime. The tight ends being used in this offense is completely different than last year, and it really diversifies the offense moving forward.
Matt Craig joining us here on the set, taking over offensive line coach Kyle Devan's place. Matt, you were able to observe this game and see what Riley Neal and this offense was able to do. What about the defense? What did they do today that surprised you?
Pressured the quarterback. 10 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. It was Anthony Winbush, and then when he went out, it was Christian Albright. The defensive line got after it today, and I thought that was the strongest part of Ball State's game.
You mentioned the defensive line, Anthony Winbush. He leads the nation in sacks. He had 2 more today, ups his ante up to 6.5. How was his impact felt today?
It was massive. I mean, he really came up with big play after big play, as did the rest of the defense, when Ball State needed it the most. You know, Tennessee Tech would get moving, and then that big play would come in and completely shut down a drive. Complete game changer.
Yeah, he's the type of guy, you can't block him with one guy, and the stats are there, but even the plays where he's not getting tackled, he's not getting sacks, he is making you think about it. You know, and that running back's having to step up and block the oncoming rusher. He just affects the game in such a big way.
Tennessee Tech did have some offensive drives where they put the pressure on that Ball State defense, but this was the big one, the interception right before halftime to help Ball State get jump-started.
What an acrobatic catch. I mean,
Absolutely.
Really, the focus on the ball. Watch how this goes off the legs of the defender, and then the interception is able to be made. That's just incredible, and it really was. It changed the pace of the offense as we switched over when Ball State got it back.
Yeah, I mean, this was an FCS school. They were 21-point favorites, but it was a game. I mean, Ball State had to continue to compete throughout the game. We knew the emphasis all season is how to finish games, and Ball State's defense stepped up a lot in that fourth quarter.
And we saw James Gilbert have a big game, which he needed. The first 2 games, you felt he had a presence, but he didn't necessarily have those breakout big runs. He had one today, and then the touchdown catch. It's, I think, what he needed to build some confidence moving forward before we get into MAC play.
Tennessee Tech had these couple of big runs. There was some at the end of the first half, but in the second half they started to get close. And this one a little bit worrisome for Ball State. Near the end of the game, it only ended up being a 15-point game. And a lot of it was because the defense closed in at the end. But what did Tennessee Tech do that gave Ball State some pressure?
They were able to make some big plays. I mean, Thane Wright on the run that we just saw, Goldsmith in the first half, rushing the ball and catching the ball. I felt like they got into a little bit of a rhythm in that third quarter, early fourth quarter. They were definitely making Ball State a little worried there at the end of the game.
And whenever that happened, you had a big play. Ball State responded. Malik Dunner, 66-yard touchdown run. He's been a big play machine this year. And as you heard Coach Devan say, he's the speedster. And then mix it up with your bruiser, Caleb Huntley, who can burst it to the outside with that speed. I mean, it's just such a diverse backfield. It's tough to defend.
Yeah, guys, second half, James Gilbert went out of the game, looked like a wrist injury. You know, we don't know what that's going to be at this point. But Caleb Huntley, who had 1 rush in the first half, really stepped up, ate up a lot of yards in the second half, and then Malik Dunner's the guy that comes in. He's the game breaker.
Last week, a 93-yard touchdown run when it was just a 7-point game. Today, he did it when it was an 11-point game, got another touchdown on that 66-yard touchdown run. So he was another mainstay in this offense. But Justin Hall, 7 receptions, 82 yards, another touchdown for the freshman wide receiver. How do you impress here today?
Well, with Ball State losing Kevon Mabon last year, there was a lot of questions at wide receiver. Who was going to be the number 1 guy? And through these last 2 games, it looks like it's going to be Justin Hall. He just has such speed, and his route running is impressive. There's a couple times seeing that Neal didn't hit him, but he's wide open across the middle of the field. He's just so tough to defend, and you're seeing it here.
The thing that's impressed me, the route running has been great. But after the catch, he's really, really slippery. He always makes like that first guy miss, and he's gotten both of his touchdowns off of broken tackles. He's been really good after the catch.
And you talk about a catch radius a lot of times with receivers. How close do you need to get it to them for them to be able to make a play on the ball? And Justin Hall is just, it's so impressive because I think of him as a speed receiver, but then you see these plays where he's able to dive out of bounds and make this incredible catch, and he just keeps it going, and it's just such a different thing than what Ball State had last year.
And when you look at this slot receiving core, Justin Hall, Corey Lacaneri, we talked about it on the pregame show today, how they can form a tandem that could be dangerous. What did you see out of those two specifically as a team that can help this team move forward in the receiving core?
I mean, precise route running, and I would even add the tight ends. I mean, they've had a tight end touchdown every single game. That's something that Ball State hasn't had in the last 2 seasons. So when you talk about the interior runners, the Riley Millers, Corey Lacanerias, and even those tight ends, it gives Riley Neal a lot of options all across the field.
Where we saw Ball State have one person that defenses could target the last 2 years, Jordan Williams 2 years ago and Mabon last year, it's more spread out this year because we don't know who the number 1 guy is. So he could go to Justin Hall, Riley Miller. He's going to hit his tight ends or James Gilbert out of the backfield. It's allowing Neal to be mobile and not get him so focused on one receiver that it can get him to hit him into trouble in the pocket.
Yeah, I've really liked, there's a formation that Ball State uses in the red zone where they put James Gilbert out wide, and then they put Caleb Huntley in the backfield. They'll bring Gilbert in motion. I really like those sets because they stretch you out and you don't know what they're going to hit you with. You know, is it the big fella, Huntley up the middle? Is it Gilbert around the edge? They got a touchdown with Gilbert doing that last week. Ball State has a lot of weapons on the field and are able to put up a lot of points. Maybe sometime we'll see a 3 running back set with Dunner with those two. That would be something else to see here for Ball State football. Well, let's take a live look in at what head coach Mike New is saying in his press conference.
So, great win, great team win. Things we got to clean up offensively. Not as sharp as we have been. You know, good opening drive of the game, but after that, really not our best effort. Very sluggish. You know, we had 3 turnovers to their 2, so losing the turnover battle obviously is disappointing. That is a recipe that got us obviously in trouble a year ago. We've been good, but we got to get that fixed. But like I said, it's good to get a win here at home. Great weather. We've got to correct some mistakes tomorrow and get ready to get ourselves going for Western Kentucky.
Coach, so talking about that sack, more sack there near the end of the game, you know, he came through unblocked, and it really seemed like one of the reasons for that is that they had been double teaming Winbush all day, and that freed him up. How important is that presence of Winbush for those kind of plays?
Well, he's going to command double teams. He's going to command attention. It was a great call by Coach Ellison, bringing some edge pressure right there. You know, David Moore is one of those guys that he thrives on that. You know, no different than him coming off the edge to block a punt last week. I mean, he loves when he has that opportunity. So it was a great job by Coach Ellison with that call right there, and Demo executed it. It was good to see.
Yeah, and then, you know, Tennessee Tech there, 3 for 4 scoring in the red zone, but only one of those was a touchdown. What did you see from the defense in the red zone?
Well, you're talking about our defense?
Yeah, your defense.
Yeah, obviously they did a good job of what I would say bending, but and so that's good because, you know, every scenario, every weekend when those guys are playing, it's kind of baptism by fire. So you're proud of you know, it took a couple bumps and bruises here and there, you know, and some broken tackles where they probably got, but for them to bounce back there and continue to fight the fight and play the game. So there's a lot of good tape to evaluate there, and a lot of things obviously for us that we got to clean up.
Teams are going to pay a lot more attention to Anthony Winbush going forward. He continues to play well. How does he prepare himself now with kind of the target on his back and to understand what teams are trying to do?
Well, you hope that when Anthony commands attention or double team like that and they're trying to pay attention to him, that the other guys are able to thrive off of that. You know, the inside guys, Kevin Willis, John Swisher, Reggie McGee, young, you know, Christian Albright with his, I think, first sack today as a freshman. So those guys should reap the rewards of a guy like Anthony commanding that much attention, getting double teamed. So, but, you know, those guys start to make some plays and get some production, then they'll stop taking. They'll have to stop paying so much attention to Anthony if other guys are able to step up when they have an opportunity. So that's going to continue to happen. You know, Anthony's a great football player. That's going to continue to happen, and we just be prepared for it. And he's got to, you know, make sure he's in great condition for 4 quarters and mentally tough enough to know that that's going to be part of the game plan each and every week.
Take one more question.
Coach New impressed with Anthony Winbush's performance here. Once again, we're joined by wide receiver Justin Hall, just a freshman on this Ball State team. Justin, a victory here today. What did you see offensively that allowed you guys to have success?
We started off early. We started off rushing the ball early. We knew that was going to bring our pressure. They pressured more of a rush defense. So Coach said run, and then we got them on a little sweep, a little jet pass. So, you know.
Yeah, Justin, you're only 3 games into your college career. At what point in the process did you realize that you were going to be able to make an impact right away?
Probably after the first game. Coach told me that he's going to try to give me the ball more, give the ball to his playmakers, make more plays. And I stepped up once our veteran Jordan Hogue got hurt. So I think I stepped in pretty well. You mentioned Jordan's injury. What has he done to help you learn about this offense? He's very smart. You know, he helps me out everything. If I have a problem with the plays, hey, Hogue, what's this? You know, what's going on? He always comes. We call him Coach Hogue.
Another guy that can help you out is Riley Neal. He played a lot as a true freshman himself. What conversations have you had with him about making an impact early in your career?
Riley, he really just talks to me about my route, my depth to my routes, making everything perfect, making everything sharp, just giving me the keys to be a great receiver.
When you guys looked at Tennessee Tech here today and knew they had a defense that could come out and pass rush, how did you attack that offensively, especially as the receivers?
We had to get out our routes and run them perfect. Riley's gonna put it on the money. So hey, he did the most.
You've been impressive in 3 areas: the route running, yards after catch, also good hands. Of those 3 or anything else, what do you think is your strength as a receiver?
Probably my route running and my hands, I'll say.
And what have you done to work on those?
After practice, just throwing with Riley after practice. Everybody really throws after practice, so we got a hard-working team.
Justin Hall joining us here on SportsLink Game Day on the post-game show. Justin, thanks. Congratulations on the victory today.
Thank you.
Well, Ball State wins this one 28-13, but let's take a look what's happening around the Mid-American Conference as a whole. Northern Illinois, a big upset over the Nebraska Cornhuskers, a Big Ten opponent, 21-17. They had 2 pick sixes, Matt, and that's a game that everybody had circled on their scorecards. Northern Illinois walks away with a Mid-American Conference win. 2
pick sixes, and at the end of the game, Nebraska was driving down to win the game, and there was another interception that Northern Illinois had to seal it. So that defense really stepping up, and that's a huge win at Nebraska.
And look at another one, Ohio beating Kansas, a Big 12 team. So there's 2 big games right there, a 42-30 victory. Ohio poured it on. Workey had his normal game, 152 yards, 2 touchdowns, but that defense against Kansas's offense swelled up.
And Kansas is one of those bottom-tier teams in the Big 12, and those are the teams that the MAC needs to win to elevate itself, not only as Ohio as a program, but the MAC overall. If you can take down those small teams, the image of the MAC just goes up and up.
Akron loses to Iowa State 41-14. Central Michigan dropping their game to Syracuse 38-17. Colgate and Buffalo late start, as is Kent State and Marshall. 2 more fun ones to watch inside the Mid-American Conference. But one more time, let's take a look at what happened here today at Scheumann Stadium. The 28-13 victory for Ball State here on Family Weekend against Tennessee Tech. 2-1, they've won 2 straight.
We talked about Anthony Winbush with those 2 sacks, but one guy we haven't mentioned yet is Christian Albright. True freshman, came in for Winbush, on that defensive line, and was able to get a sack, forced a fumble that was, Tennessee Tech recovered. But at the same time, you've now got a situation where you've got somebody right behind your best defender in Anthony Winbush that's able to produce. Saw him play a little bit on the left in the second half, and that'll be interesting to watch moving forward, is can they get both those pass rushers on the field at the same time?
Of the guys we see up here, Justin Hall, we just talked to him. 7 receptions, 82 yards. He was in the end zone again this week, as we saw last week. And there's been a tradition of Ball State #1 receivers, Jordan Williams, Kevon Maybon. Just 3 games into his college career, Justin Hall looks like the next great Cardinals receiver.
And James Gilbert today, 11 carries, 92 yards. He didn't even play that entire 4th quarter. How did James Gilbert impact here today, help him moving forward? He hasn't had 100 yards in the game yet this year.
Well, the big plays have been the common thread for this offense in these last 2 games. It's been the difference maker. You had Malik Dunner's kickoff return last week, his 66-yard run, and James Gilbert was finally to get in on that action. This busted out a run here to the outside. Later on, had a 17-yard touchdown catch. It's these kind of things that completely change field position and change the face of the game.
I mean, we talk about the 3 running backs, but that guy right there, James Gilbert, that's the one that they need. They use him in the goal line sets, even though he's not the biggest guy. They use him as the workhorse, getting those consistent carries. And, I mean, of the 3, they need him. They're using him in the passing game right there. He caught a touchdown. He is the guy that can pound it up the middle and beat you around the end. He is really, really valuable, and they hope to have him back.
And he's a leader. That's the thing we commonly forget, is that Malik Dunner, as well as Caleb Huntley's a true freshman. Gilbert, they're all going to be back next year.
Scary.
It is scary. It's really starting to see. Now, let's see, these last 2 games, UAB, Tennessee Tech, that's a little bit different than what you're going to see with Western Michigan, with Toledo, those kind of things. Let's see how this running back core and that offensive line develop throughout the rest of the year.
James Gilbert today had 3 catches. He only had 1 in his entire career through his first 2 seasons. Had 3 today, that touchdown catch. James Gilbert phenomenal once again here today. Guys, before we take off, Western Kentucky, the next opponent for Ball State. What's to look forward for that one?
I mean, I really think what we saw today of getting the running game established in the first half, like right out of the gate, we were running. I mean, I think that's something that they need to do again on the road. Western Kentucky, running on the road is tough, but this is a Ball State team that wants to run first, and then when everyone is, impacted or compacted in there, then Riley Neal opens it up. We need to establish the run again next week.
For me, it's defensively, can they put the pass rush on teams that aren't Tennessee Tech, FCS schools? Can that pass rush sustain? Because we saw that a little bit last year. Eastern Kentucky came in, 8 sacks as a team, and it looked really good. And then throughout the year, it kind of dwindled down a little bit. Can they consistently keep up that pass rush, and can Anthony Winbush maintain this level of play?
I mean, it helps that we have the nation's leader in tackles for loss and sacks. I mean, I think Anthony Winbush, against Illinois, I mean, those are legit offensive linemen, not Tennessee Tech. He was eating them up. I don't think you're going to be able to block Anthony Winbush all season, personally.
6.5 sacks. He had 2 more today after 3 against Illinois to open up the season. Anthony Winbush has been fantastic. Still leads the nation in sacks for Ball State. Well, that does it for our SportsLink Game Day post-game coverage of Ball State's victory here today against Tennessee Tech on Family Weekend. 28-13 victory. Ball State 2-1 now in the season. They've won 2 straight here this season. Well, next Saturday, September 23rd, Ball State is at Western Kentucky at 7 p.m. kickoff on the road for Ball State. That does it. Special thanks to our producer and director, Aaron Casey, here today for all of her hard work on the pregame, postgame, and halftime shows. For Alex Thomas and Matt Craig, I'm Mick Tidrow signing off from Scheumann Stadium. Another win for Ball State football, 28-13 over Tennessee Tech.